speaking of funds, regular funds for family of, we giving you numbers for this year. Why it's critical to mention that it is for 2023, because it was changed. It changed actually. It's funny. This year is very unusual. Normally, government changing everything for every category of immigrants at the same time. They change required funds requirement for everyone on the list: students, workers, express entry, provincial nominee. They change at the end of April. For some reason, I don't know why, you guys special. For startup visa, they change it at the end of March before even they announce it publicly. So we know the sources, we work with sources from immigration, we know about this information. We immediately notify our clients, whoever was on that border situation, like application and process right there. We notified them, we applied perfectly on time, new numbers. So these numbers for this year, why every year they change? Well, because government assess inflation rate for the year prior to that, right? So that's how they assess it, and that's why it usually goes up. I never saw in my 20 plus years, almost 26 years in practice, I never saw those required fund goes down. Maybe inflation was always up because this is a fact. Maybe cost of living goes always up. We're not going to go into social political assessment of environment. We're just saying in terms of your immigration procedure, those required funds will change next year. My usual warning for clients, and this is advice, another tip, useful tip for you guys to note, every year government assess inflation, and if it's about 2%, last year it was enormous. It was like 7-9% on average in Canada alone. You felt it on your own pockets and your own budget around the world. So you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about increase. It's supposed to be more moderate increase. I was afraid it will be in the range of thousands of dollars. Well, surprisingly for me, good surprise. It was a few $100s. So the family of one person supposed to provide required settlement funds for 6 months prior to application in amount of 13,757, and then you see the list, and then after 7 people, and we do have families with more than 5 kids, so obviously that applies to them. Any extra family member assessed as a $3,706 per year, per month. Sorry. So basically, that's your requirement for one person, and that's exactly how they assess it. So you have to have those funds, and 6-month statement is required before the submission time. That's exactly what you need to maintain going forward. Sometimes people say, Dr. Alex, we submitted PR, I can spend my money now, right? No. Why? Because at any time, government may say, show us 6-month statement. It can happen in 3 months. It can happen in 20 months. You never know, but you have to be prepared. At least that's our position. Even more, on the same subject of settlement funds, I always recommend people to create what I call buffer. Buffer in terms of like few $1,000s on top, because next year, and you will be in process if you just recently applied, definitely you will go through another increase. In this year, it was moderate. What if it's more than 1,000 next year and you trying to keep exact balance, warning sign, keep a buffer. Another warning sign, and recently people experienced that due to enormous economic stress and recession and inflation and all these factors we can leave aside. It's a mess. And if it's a mess, local currency can be under stress and can fluctuate as much as double digits. In some countries, we have triple digits increase in a year. It's devastating. I totally feel the pain, but feeling the pain and not telling the truth to different things. I always tell the truth, doesn't matter if it hurts, but it hurts to help you. So increase the amount, save it in currency that's acceptable in Canada. You can save the rest of your funds anywhere, the way you want, in funds you want. Here, we're talking about private account, either for you a joint account. This is a very important detail, or joint account with your spouse, also acceptable now. So basically your private account under your private name, that's ideal. Not business, not even with your spouse. That's ideal. But if you have a spousal account, don't break it. Don't create extra stress. Just keep it. But your name must be there as applicant, and only one person allowed to have joint account is spouse. Because sometimes people come in and saying, well, I have joint account with my kids because they study in London, they study in US, they study in Canada. Can I use that account? Because it's easy for me and my child to use the same account and it's sufficient funds there. No, because that's exactly what government is against, because definition of funds is quite simple: cashable, available, unencumbered. So basically no obligations on that account of any sort. For the same reason, mutual funds not acceptable, because mutual funds tend to be unstable, especially in this economic environment. And government is approaching this things very simple way. They say, well, how can you guarantee that money will be there tomorrow when you move here? Is it cashable? Can you liquidate all the funds without loss? By the way, some people keeping money on fixed deposits, and that's kind of interesting, because recently we got yet another request from the government about settlement funds, and this time they actually, it's very interesting how they learn and going through this learning curve, and they specifically mark a fixed deposit. So if you present fixed deposit, they want to see the penalty. If you cash that fixed deposit prematurely, obviously you will pay some penalty for losing the interest or whatever. And they say, please deduct it. So they getting smarter, guys. So if enemy getting smarter, you have to get smarter, right? That's how we see our position to teach you how to avoid those mistakes.